And welcome once again to another episode of the Horizon Roundtable. I am Bob McDonald, and you can find me on Twitter at Bob McDonald. Filling in this episode for Jimmy is, our regular guest co-host Matt Dudek.
Hey there, everybody.
Matt, of course, is at Grizz Talk OU, and you can find the podcast on Twitter as well at Horizon RT. Matt, before we get started, obviously, this is the last episode. We're going to be off next week. But the week after, we are going to be engaged in our second annual Fall Fan Forum. I'm definitely looking forward to that. Most especially, not necessarily, we're going to have some new faces on there, so I'm definitely looking forward to that. Might be a little bit of fireworks going on too, so that's going to be an event.
I think the best part, Bob, is that, like you said, there's going to be new faces, and it's nice to see new fans step in. I'm not representing Oakland. Carrick isn't representing Mercy. That's good to see. There are other fans, and they're going to get their voices heard, and we're going to hear what they have to say. Now, who cares what I have to say anymore?
Well, we do. We have you on all the time, so obviously we care what you have to say. But yeah, that's gonna be in 2 weeks. So the week of September 22nd. Theoretically, we're gonna do the same thing we did last year with 2 episodes. So it'll be the week of the 22nd and the week of the 29th. Presumably, we'll have more than enough material to cover all of those things. So, and then afterwards, we'll be getting into October. We'll probably be on pretty fairly regularly as the season ramps up. But man, I gotta say, this off season has not been without. This off season has been not without any level of drama. There's always something going on between. I mean, seriously, it started with the whole Oakland situation, with the Cumberland, Javen Cumberland and Braden Norris situation, and then came the meltdown at Cleveland State. And you would have thought that the Cleveland State thing would have been the end, because we're in September. We're in September now. Classes have started, and things should have theoretically kind of died down. But IUPUI decided, no, we're gonna go ahead and continue the drama. And we can't blame this on IUPUI. This is squarely on the shoulders of their now former head coach, Jason Gardner. So what happened with Jason Gardner, for those of you, and unfortunately we were off during the Labor Day weekend, so we didn't get a chance to talk about this. But at the end of August, this is amazing. At the end of August, Jason Gardner, at 4:30 in the morning, apparently, decided it would be an outstanding idea to drive drunk. And the Hamilton County Sheriffs were not particularly down with that.
They thought that was a terrible idea, and you know what? I'm going to go with the police on this one.
I am going to go with the police as well. Yeah. So that was a really bad idea. So
Always a bad idea.
So the official charge his official charge is operating OWI, which apparently in Indiana speak is the same as a DUI anywhere else. Yeah. So but it gets better, because he'd have been fine had he just not stopped in the middle of an intersection. Apparently the reason that he got busted in the first place is that he stopped his vehicle in the middle of an intersection. And so the police came, and there you go. So, and apparently it was still in gear, so he was asleep at the wheel. Probably not the best idea. I'm just kind of throwing that out there, man. I mean, honestly, they're called parking lots, dude. Even though, let's be honest, you probably would have gotten busted doing that as well. So that was a major issue. That was already a major issue. and the case obviously is still ongoing. IUPUI decided not to wait for decided they were not going to wait for the case to remain to continue. So they decided that it would be best if IUPUI decided it would be best if they and Jason Gardner parted ways. Now remember, this is the end of August. This is happening.
Well, I wonder, was their school already in session? Like, most schools start end of August, beginning of September. So they might have been.
Let me double check. I think they actually were. IUPUI, I believe, starts classes at the end of August like everybody else does. So let me check their academic calendar. And yeah, I do believe they started. They were in the middle of classes already.
So that means he should have already been on campus prepping to coach his team, or at least make sure they're doing their job. I don't know where we're at in the schedule, if he's allowed to be hands-on.
Yes, fall classes started on August 26th, on that Monday. So apparently, before classes officially started on that Sunday, Jason Gardner decided to go on a bender.
One last of summer. Pour one out, and here we go.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I mean, no. Well, technically, it was Saturday night, so I'm guessing what he thought would be a good idea, and it didn't turn out. It turned out to be a horrible idea that nobody should ever repeat. Yeah, I say that, and you're going to get a repeat of this again somewhere in college land. Yeah. So apparently Saturday night, apparently Jason Gardner decided to tie a few on, and then at the end he decided it would be an outstanding idea. And this is the part I don't really understand either. We are in the age of Uber and Lyft and taxis and
call your friends when you're drunk and don't get in a car and drive, stupids.
I mean, you would. I don't understand the thought process there. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to sound judgmental, but it's dumb.
I am judgmental. It is dumb.
But I mean, let's be honest here. Alcohol does impair your judgment, so we have further proof of that. So after a night on the town on Saturday night, the Saturday before classes, Jason Gardner apparently, again, terrible judgment, decided it would be an awesome idea, said, yeah, I can make it home.
Let's be fair. He was already... Oh, so go ahead, Bob.
And then apparently he decided to he ran out of gas in the middle of an intersection and fell asleep at the wheel. To which the cops came over and said, yeah, you can't do that, dude. So, yeah.
He's already the coach at IUPI, so his judgment was already probably in question.
It wasn't, yeah, well, he was... So it's funny. What's interesting, of course, is that what I find interesting, of course, is the fact that we were already talking about kind of this season as kind of being his at the crossroads season. I mean, let's be honest. It's that's what's going on. I mean, he was and it was going to be a massive uphill climb for him anyway. Now, mind you, of course, he still has Jalen Manette, he still has Grant Weatherford, but the big problem is he lost Cameron Justice, and that was a huge loss for a team that went 16-17 last year, in a conference where everybody not named Cleveland State is kind of is poised to step their game up this year. So so this was kind of be a big uphill climb for him as it was, and then for this to happen, it was obviously a deal breaker. I get it. I mean, you want to, first of all, there's obviously something going on beneath the surface that, I mean, there's something going on that necessitated this to be an immediate move. It's a real I mean, let's be honest. It's a black eye for for an IUPUI team that that's had some issues that's that has been struggling to kind of move their way up the ladder since they've gotten into the Horizon League. And now you have a situation where you've got a guy, you have a coach that that displayed poor judgment, and so clearly IUPUI decided that's it, we're not doing this anymore, and cut ties immediately. So who they have now is they actually they already had somebody on staff. They had the associate head coach who is Byron Rim, who actually was the former head coach at Prairie View A&M. So, they were not with. So he's the interim. So Byron Rim is now the interim head coach now. They're not exactly without. They're not without a capable leader. Because Byron Rim, honestly, he's got 10 years. He's got 10 years of coaching experience under his belt, so he's not new to the game. He knows kind of their whole. He knows what the Division I is all about. I mean, and he also, in addition, he was at Prairie View, so Prairie View obviously is an institution that you have to do more with less. They're part of the SWAC. They were part of the SWAC, which is where Mike Davis was prior to coming to Detroit at Texas Southern. So as that kind of school, you have to you obviously have to do with more with less. Mike Davis had to do more with less, and he rattled off a string of NCAA appearances. By the way, ironically, if I'm not mistaken, so that is, and Rim actually did actually get Prairie View to that SWAC championship game. I want to say that I think it was the year before. I'm pretty sure it was the year before Mike Davis came in with his run. So after Mike Davis came in, he obviously didn't have a chance because it's Mike Davis, and we know what kind of a coach Mike Davis is. But he was, obviously he was a capable coach up until that last year, 2015, 2016, where I think they won maybe one game that year. So that was kind of it for him.
And that's just it. We know Rim has experience, and I'm glad for IUPI that they have somebody, but
yeah,
and it was already rough sledding, and then it just keeps getting worse.
Yeah, well, and that keep getting worse came in the form of Calvin Temple entering the transfer portal. I mean, yeah, that's something, man.
That's another huge loss that they couldn't afford.
It really is, because Calvin Temple, he was supposed to be kind of their guy this year. He was supposed to come in and be able to. He was actually really, he was geared towards.
He was the number one point guard out of Alabama. Was it Alabama or Mississippi? I forgot.
Mississippi. He was the number one. He was the number one. Yeah, he was actually the top. He was the top point guard coming. He was actually the top shooting guard. I'm sorry, coming out of Mississippi. And he really was. I mean, in all honesty, he really was poised to really. He was, obviously he's coming in as a freshman, but he was at the same time, given the fact that Cameron Justice isn't on this team anymore. Between him and Weatherford and Jalen Madette, that would have been a nice combination for them. Would he have come in, and would he have made up for the loss of Cameron Justice? I don't know, but at the same time, it would have minimized the loss, not necessarily eliminated the loss, But now it's he doesn't have it's just not happening. Um, so now comes the fun part. So now of course you're looking at the that you're looking at IUPUI and you're wondering, okay, now what? I mean, and we'll be, and I guess we shouldn't be. In all honesty, we didn't have once Cameron Justice kind of once Cameron Justice decided to transfer, their prospects were shaky at best. I mean, don't get me wrong. Obviously, a guy like Jalen Manette is definitely an excellent player for them, but can he shoulder the load? I mean, that's the question we got. And
No.
I'm not. I mean, and again, with IUPUI, how do you, even if Jason Gardner had stayed, how exactly would they have stacked up? Even if that was the best case scenario, how would have they were again facing an uphill battle, stacked up against the rest of a conference that, again, Cleveland State aside, all of them by and large had incrementally, either stayed where they are in terms of their place at the top half of the conference, or working their way up, like potentially a Detroit Mercy with Antoine Davis, or a Youngstown State that looks like they've got a good core coming back, and so that was going to be a struggle for them anyway. Now add into this new, there's just a lot of there's just not a there, the uncertainty at IUPUI only kind of is kind of downplayed, and of course this being the Horizon League. IUPUI, if this was any other year, this would be, oh my God, IUPUI is in deep trouble. I mean, IUPUI is, what happened to them? We'd be solely focused on what's going on with them. If this were any other normal year.
This year.
Not this year. Not this year. Again, given everything else that has gone on over the course of the last year, over the course of the offseason, like I said, between the spate of transfers from Oakland, from
yeah,
you definitely it's good that obviously Oakland has found themselves still a lot of new guys, obviously, but the big thing for them is they've still got that core guys. They've still got the Brad Brechting and the Xavier Hill Mays that kind of solidify the team as a whole. So if you bring in a guy like, so that kind of helps a lot, especially when you got solid core guys like those two guys. I mean, you're talking about two guys who are definitely good. Xavier Hill Mays is obviously in all Horizon, all conference consideration, and in some circles, so it's Brad Brechting. So if you got two quality guys like that for Oakland, from their standpoint, it's but again, they also had more than enough time to work their stuff out, because all of Oakland's issues happened right at the beginning of the offseason.
That's the big thing. It gave time to work it out.
Yeah, they had so much time to work it out. Plus, they went to Greece to kind of work on the whole teamwork thing, because that generally, that generally, with a couple noted exceptions, is always a good bonding experience as well. So that they have all of the that Oakland was able to kind of right the ship early. We're not talking about them anymore. We're talking about them in terms of where they stand in the Horizon League now.
Sure.
They're not, they kind of haven't, their issues weren't insurmountable. But in the case of IUPUI and Cleveland State specifically, um, that's you know IUPUI is we were already kind of we've got a couple of guys, but we don't know how the new guys they got coming in are gonna mesh, and now we have this interim coach. I mean, they know the guy. He's a known quantity, obviously, because he's been an associate head coach. They know him, but the concern, of course, is how will he? What is going to be his game plan with this group of guys? So that's a big question mark. And then, of course, Cleveland State. They got 8 new guys.
All right, but here's my question, and
Yes.
and it's just gonna sound like me being me, and I understand that.
Sure.
But why are we downplaying the Detroit Mercy factor in all this? We still don't know who's on their team. They're still not tournament eligible. They're in worse shape than any of these teams, and somehow they're getting a pass this offseason. I don't know if I understand that.
I do. I mean, again, the Cleveland State thing kind of pretty much was, that talk about the mushroom cloud to distract everybody from anything else, right there. I mean, seriously. I mean, and I'm glad you brought that up because that's another factor. Because you still have Detroit Mercy, who is still currently under the APR ban. Obviously they've appealed, but we haven't heard whether the appeal has gone through or not. And more to the point, and this is important, that appeal, whether it goes through or not, puts a lot of guys in a holding pattern. It sounds like. So yeah, I mean, we're kind of they're kind of while we're talking about the concerns of Cleveland State and IUPUI, you're absolutely right that Detroit Mercy could potentially be in a far worse situation, but because of the appeal they're in, they're kind of stuck in suspended animation at the moment. That's my opinion on it.
If they lose that appeal, which I've asked Oakland's compliance officer, who's on Twitter and awesome, like just mind your business, which is one of the best Twitter handles. Like trying to get a read on it. No one really knows, but it's hard to tell if they're going to win that appeal or not. And I mean, if they don't, do you redshirt Davis for a year? What are they going to do with that situation? And again, they don't seem to have a roster in place because guys were afraid to commit.
Well, yeah, I mean your roster commitments are in terms of don't they have 3 scholarships available, don't they?
I think so. I mean, I just double checked to make sure I didn't miss something. They don't have a posted roster.
Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of rumors and talk of but they don't have a complete roster as far as I know, just like they didn't last year with Davis coming in late. Not
yeah.
It's still a mess, and I can't imagine they're not going to get any late grad transfers. Why would you grad transfer where you don't know if you're even tournament eligible?
I know. I mean, and your big signees were Calipari's kid and Derrick Rose's cousin, who, by the way, neither of which need a scholarship. So that's, I don't know. But again, I don't want to, I don't want to downplay this because obviously, in terms of as far as Detroit Mercy is concerned, this is a huge deal. But it is as much of a potential mess as that is. It just seems to me that the Cleveland State and IUPUI situations completely downplayed both of those, which is amazing when you consider the situation that Detroit Mercy is in, to have 2 other schools that are in who had bigger kind of bombs dropped on them than they did. And they have the potential to not even being in. They have the potential to not even be in the conference tournament if the appeal doesn't go through. And that's the least. That potentially is the least of their problems. I mean, it's one of those things where those three teams. Now again, and somebody better get their shit together over at the NCAA. I know that's a heavy lift for them, but I mean, somebody better get something. Somebody better say something soon. I mean, I understand speed and efficiency are not the NCAA's bag, but I mean, get it together, guys. I mean, really.
They are in no hurry to rule on that. I bet you we don't hear until late September, beginning of October at the earliest.
Well, we're yeah. I mean, we're well into September now, and it's ridiculous. And and keep in mind, practice officially starts for all schools at at the end of September. So I mean,
And they're on a practice. They get the practice time limited as well with that ban.
yeah,
That affects them.
of course it does, and that's yeah, all because two guys decided they were going to take a gap year and then go to Long Island University.
One of the Sharks.
Yes, yeah, the new Long Island University, which I think is the combination of LIU Brooklyn and LIU Post. They just mashed them together, and now they're the Sharks.
They sure are.
Good for them, I guess. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter to any of us, but yeah, but and honestly, and I'm thinking of all of these things between the IUPUI situation, the Cleveland State situation, the Detroit situation. How do you? I mean, how are you? Because at this point, right now, there are the preseason publications are coming out as we speak. I think Athlon's come out, has come out. If you're a writer or editor for one of these preseason publications, how on you have to be losing your mind trying to figure out what the hell is going on with the Horizon League.
If any of those writers are listening to this podcast, I'm begging you, and I realize that Horizon League's probably not a priority for you. I get it. Talk to one of us, please.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, I think it was Lindy that just came out, and they had that Appleby left, so he was a transfer.
Yeah.
He was a Cleveland State loss, but was also on the second team, which just tells you that someone didn't do their job editing. Like,
yes, by the way, it's funny because they actually, because I made a note of that, and they actually replied back to me apologizing for missing that, which I can't believe that happened. I was blown away by getting that like mea culpa on that. I mean, a lot of good that does us because it's in print now, but at the same time, I mean, that's and it's not, yeah, but you're absolutely right. The Horizon League, as far as these others, these publications are concerned, is a pretty low priority, and always has been a low priority. I mean, it is what it is. So I'm not entirely surprised that things get missed. I mean, let's be honest with us. Let's be honest. We're the Horizon League. That's what happens. Things get missed.
Which is great. That's why this exists, because there's a group of people that care enough to follow it that much closer. Cool. Let's talk to them. But like when they and I'm glad to hear that they admitted that, hey, you screwed up, and it happens. But some of these predictions, I'm seeing Jalen Tate on second teams. Jalen Tate is going to be at least a preseason first teamer. Like, come on, let's be real. Like, that's just not doing your job.
I mean, but this isn't a new phenomenon. We've seen this year after year after year. I'm not surprised. I'm just disappointed.
I'm begging them, if they hear this, talk to us before your publications next year. We'll help. You don't even have to tell anyone you talk to us. Just, hey, what am I missing? Who should we be looking out for? Cool, let's talk about it.
Even better, go to horizonroundtable.com in the next month, because because I know John Parker's working on a bunch of previews for schools, and I'm sure we're going to have a bunch of our writers doing previews as well. They will know. They will absolutely know what they're talking about. Believe me, we pride ourselves in bringing since we started publishing articles on horizonroundtable.com, we have prided ourselves in getting 99% of the facts right. Except apparently whether what the name of Detroit Mercy is. Apparently we keep messing that up. I mean, is that really our fault? I mean, they've changed their branding 100 million times. I mean, what are we supposed to do with that? I know it's Detroit Mercy, but even I forget from time to time.
I didn't know there was a Detroit. I thought they were just Mercy.
See, I don't know. Yeah, see. Well, no, it is Detroit Mercy.
I know it's Detroit Mercy, but God, I love riling up those fans.
I know you do.
I just want to make sure the old one's hearts still work. That's all.
I know you do. So, It
I
is
saw
what it is.
you found a Mercy fan for the forum that wasn't Carrick. That's awesome.
Hey, absolutely. Yeah, you know what? We may actually have an IUPUI fan too. So we're down to. So we're actually. So if all goes well, we're down to a UIC. And we're out down to looking for a Youngstown State fan and a UIC fan. Um, I have my own thoughts on that if I can find neither. But I will hold off until I get to the fan forum, of which I fully intend to address this. I will hold all comments until that point in time
I'll
because
pitch it. Yeah,
it's not over yet. You still have, yes, if you're a Youngstown State or a UIC fan, there's still time. Send us a DM at Horizon RT. We'd be more than happy to hear from you. Yeah. So, and as it turns out, for whatever reason, yeah. If it's a couple days, if it takes us a couple days to get back to you, we apologize profusely. For some reason, we're not getting all that many. Some of our notifications come to us late. So, but regardless, just keep trying. So, so I think. So the one thing I also wanted to talk about today. Um, and this is funny because the Horizon Roundtable has been recording. We had our run from 2015 to 2016. Took a couple years off. We've been around since 2018. We've been back since 2018, and we've kind of scaled it up. Now we have HorizonRoundtable.com with our with new content and everything. All of a sudden, the Horizon League has decided that they're going to create a podcast of their own. I believe the title of it is Reach the Horizon, I believe.
sure.
And it is being hosted by Justin Kinner out of Dayton. Very familiar with Justin's work. He does a lot of the halftime activities for the Wright State broadcast. So
He's not the old cowboy guy, right?
he's not the no. He is not that guy. He is absolutely not that guy. He's a much younger guy.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah, Justin Kinner. He's again. He's got his own show on the local ESPN affiliate in Dayton, so he's an obvious known quantity. He knows he knows the Horizon League pretty well. I can say that, and I bring this up because I know that the arrival of this podcast has elicited certain feelings from Horizon League fans.
Oh, you mean the fans that weren't really connected to the Horizon League in the first place and are scoffing at this?
Or fans of the Horizon Roundtable who are scoffing at this.
Yeah, that's the same people, and I love it.
This is true. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody who does listen to and of course, obviously, we close the show with thanks for listening, but I'm going to do this in the middle of the show today, but I'll say it again at the end of the show. But we do appreciate all of our fans, and we do hope that you will all continue to listen. Tell a friend. We enjoy having a fan base who actually pays attention to what we have to say. It's kind of impressive that two guys like myself and Jimmy, and at times you, can actually attract the attention of plenty of people. As it turns out, and I like to also thank all of you for your support in light of this news from the Horizon League home office that they're creating, launching their own podcast. That said, here's my take on it. I don't care. I actually don't have a problem with it at all. I mean, in fact, I personally would encourage not only the Horizon League, but every single school to do the same thing. Let's be honest. The weekly radio shows for these coaches is all well and good, and that's fine. But it's usually just for men's basketball, and that's only a finite amount of time. And depending upon which school you're at, you're not gonna, if you miss the coaches show, you're gonna completely miss everything. Like in the case of Cleveland State, they have the show on Mondays. It isn't recorded anywhere, so if you miss anything, it's pretty much gone. It's kind of like a Snapchat or Instagram story or whatever the hell those things are. Um, so I fully I embrace the fact that the league has decided that they're going to have a podcast, not just for men's basketball, for all of their sports. Now, as far as we're concerned, they're not competition. They're not. It's apple. Personally, I think it's apples and oranges, really. Because again, what is our focus is primarily on men's basketball. It always has been. Do we talk about other sports from time to time? Sure we do. Do we talk about them all the time? No, of course not.
When are we going to do our big volleyball section? I'm in.
We're not.
All right, well, I'll just do it on my own.
But again, this is where the Horizon League comes in, and that is their focus. What they want to do is they want to have a podcast that is representative of all of the sports they sponsor, and that's great. That's the best. That's really what I think is a good move on their part. I would have loved for them to do that years ago. That would have been great.
You know what they need, Bob?
What do they need?
What if the Horizon League had their own TV station where they displayed all their sports in one place?
Wow, what a thought that would. Wow, that would be an amazing thought. That would be an amazing idea. I'm surprised they never thought of it before. Oh wait, they did.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. And then they pretty much gave it up to ESPN.
They did indeed. But I mean, yeah. So I mean, what are you gonna do? That it is what it is. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a podcast that's dedicated to all Horizon League sports instead of just men's basketball. All power to you. I mean, do I find that I don't necessarily? I personally don't. I mean, from what it sounds like from our fan base, from our listeners, there's not going to be a lot of overlap between Reach the Horizon listeners and Horizon Roundtable listeners. There may be a couple. I don't know. Maybe.
Here's my issue with it. And again, I agree with everything you're saying. My only real issue is that in this world of podcasts now, where it has become easier for everyone to podcast and everybody's on a podcast, there's so much content. It's content overload, and having to sort through what's good, what's bad, what's worth listening to, what guest is on, who's host. It's everything, and there's too much content in the podcast world now, and this is just late to the game, getting tagged on. Like, I have no reason to become invested in it. So why listen to it if it's really not gonna bring anything new to the table? I'm lucky that I'm an Oakland fan, obviously, and we have Neil Rule, who does a lot of like the publication stuff for OU behind the scenes. OU, and they do a great job with their content. Connecting fans with not just basketball but all the sports. It's very easy to follow. Our coaches are very active on Twitter, all that kind of stuff, which is great. And so for me, this just becomes another thing to try to follow or find time to listen to. It's just part of this content overload of the podcast world. I've looked at starting my own podcast, kind of related to my world of music, and what I'm finding is it's just hard to find footing with all the content that's already out there in the world. And for me, this Horizon League drop is just adding to the pile of content, and I'm struggling to get excited about it.
I don't, I mean, but I'm not really worried about, I mean, from what it sounds like, the excitement level, I mean, the league office is excited about it. I'm sure they are. I mean,
they're excited about going to Indianapolis for the tournament. They don't count.
Yeah, that's true. But at the same time, near as I can tell, and this is, and again, from what I can tell, and I find this to be true. I mean, they're going for a completely different target. I don't know who that target is. It's probably, for me, I think it's the target audience is for those folks, who do follow these other sports that aren't getting their content from anywhere else. That said, I guess the question that I would have, I mean, from what I theoretically, I would hope that would be from an entire league standpoint, as opposed to an individual school standpoint. Possibly, I don't know. That they would focus on more than one school during each of these podcasts. I would hope that they would do that. Otherwise, then to your point, it would overlap with the contents being created by each of the individual schools. That would be my concern there. But from a platform standpoint, I think it's a good idea. Like you said, it is. We are living in content over a world of content overload. But from what I can understand, their whole focus really is is to tap into something that nobody else is tapping into yet. That really, I mean, a niche with a capital N, niche market. What that translates into for them moving forward, I don't know. How long it'll last, I don't know. But I personally will be listening. I mean, I'll listen so you guys don't have to. How about that?
Will you recap the recap show for me?
Oh, Jesus. I'm not sure if I want to do all that. We have enough content on our own that we shouldn't have to be recapping somebody else's podcast. I mean, we do from time to time allude to other people's podcasts like we have in the past. So I know you've alluded to some of the things that Neil Rule has recorded. We've made mention of a couple of other. We've alluded to some of the NKU or the CSU podcasts in the past. But we're not making an entire show. We're not dedicating an entire segment every single episode to recapping whatever the heck is going on with a singular podcast. We're not going to do that. We haven't done that in the past, and we're not going to do that with this podcast either. If there's something notable that they say, then sure, absolutely. Like, for example, their first episode is going to be with John LaCrone. Now, is he going to say something of substance? I don't know.
Nope.
I mean, whether or not that, yeah, I mean,
honestly, that's the big advantage that this podcast has, and what makes me not excited about theirs is we've seen what happens when a company essentially is putting out the company word. They're going to have company people on saying company things. It's very scripted. It's very, it's not real. It's just getting out the message they want to get out. When you had Campy on, you got unfiltered Greg Campy talking open basketball. That's
Which
great.
Was outstanding. I love that.
Well, when Greg Campy's eventually going to go on their show, because they're going to want him. They're going to want a lot of the coaches, but we all know Greg Campy's character, and he's good for ratings, all these things, because Oakland does have good social media presence. They're going to want him on. It's going to be very scripted. Greg Campy saying very much, towing the company line and saying what the Horizon League wants him to say. And I'm excited about my team, and I'm excited about the move to Indiana, and it's going to be very filtered. And that's, who needs that content? That's what I like about this podcast. Even when I'm, just listening to it, it's even Jimmy, as much as I like to make fun of Jimmy, Jimmy, but a lot of times you get a lot of really good content, especially a couple of years ago, all the Amanda Braun stuff with Jimmy and all, like, you wouldn't get that on a Horizon podcast.
Absolutely not.
But when you have real people having real conversations, including, we've been lucky. You had, like I said, Greg Camp, you've had other people on this show. You get real conversations, and that's the good content. And I don't see the Horizon League putting out real content like that.
At the same time, I do kind of get where I kind of would get, from that standpoint, I kind of would get where the Horizon League would be coming from, because, yes, obviously we have our own thing going on, but remember, our own thing doesn't appeal to everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, we will say many things that will turn people off. I'm not going to lie. This is what we do. I mean, if it wasn't, we wouldn't be the Horizon Roundtable. And maybe from that standpoint, perhaps this new podcast the Horizon League is putting on presents a more, I don't want to say sanitized, but a content that isn't, you're not gonna. Let's be honest. You're never gonna. You're not gonna go into a Horizon League. The Reach for the Horizon podcast and watch one of the hosts drop an F bomb occasionally.
Is that legal here?
Sorry. I do it all the time. What's your point?
I don't remember ever hearing one on here. I'm always like, I know that you're trying to get away
I
with
dropped
it.
a couple of them last episode. What are you talking about?
I apparently was not paying attention, or I'm just so used to it that I don't even know.
Exactly. You're desensitized to our cursing.
Probably.
Yeah. So, but yeah, at the same time, and maybe that's kind of what they are. That's, they're kind of the, they're kind of the, they're kind of. If I can make a comparison, they are the smooth jazz station to our hip hop and R&B station.
Sure.
So, I mean, that's we're while we are unfiltered and playing uncensored DMX, they're playing, I don't know, Dave Koz and Grover Washington Jr. and if you guys look it up who those guys are, and some Kenny G occasionally.
Gotta have that smooth jazz.
Yeah, smooth, exactly.
Meanwhile, over here, X is gonna bring it to you.
Exactly.
X is gonna give it to you. That's what X is gonna give it to you.
That's right. Because this is So yeah, that's my thought on it. I personally think that in terms of the Horizon League, there's room enough for the content that everybody brings. Whether this goes forward or not remains to be seen. I will be listening personally. If you guys don't want to listen, that's fine. I'll listen so you guys don't have to. And if there's something noteworthy that comes out of some of these things, and I'm not making any guarantees that there will be, we'll be sure to bring it up.
You know what would impress me is if that first episode they get Commissioner on and he talks openly about the tumultuous offseason and Gardner leaving and what that's going to mean for IUPUI and how that is looked for the Horizon League from the office standpoint. If he comes out and brings that kind of content on day one, I'm in. But I don't see it happening.
No, I don't see it. I personally don't see it happening either. I think he's going to spend a lot. You know what I think is going to happen? He's going to spend a lot of time talking about. He's going to spend a lot of time talking about the fall sports and the move to Indianapolis. That's what he's going to talk about. I mean, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I am.
Like I said, if that's what it's going to be, I don't need that. Their tweets are enough for me to understand where they're at on things. Great, that's
sure.
That's fine.
But like I said, I'm going to be listening. I don't know if you guys are going to be listening, and that's about it. That's kind of it. So, let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and close out the podcast. Matt, as always, happy to have you on.
Thank you, as always, for having me. Happy to fill in.
Absolutely. And as always, you can find episodes of the Horizon Roundtable and a lot more on our website, horizonroundtable.com. And you can find episodes of the podcast wherever you find podcasts. And I promise not to mess up this recording this time, so all you'll hear is a crummy commercial. And, of course, you can find episodes of the Horizon Roundtable you can call those up on your Google and Amazon devices. So, with that said, I'm going to go ahead and close this out, and thank you all for listening.